What a mess the last couple of days have been. And yesterday it was obviously the Daily Mail in the UK that broke for a banned substance, clomiphene by VADA. And it has been a bit of a whirlwind in terms of if the fight was going to happen or not. And I guess with this video today, I just want to try and give you a timeline of the events of what have happened since this story broke out, right up until the fight being postponed, and what should happen next. But on that note, let's get into it. So in terms of the drug Ben tested positive for, it is a female fertility medicine which does double as a performance enhancing drug if men are to take it. So the drug itself is to help women who are struggling to conceive the best chance of getting pregnant. And obviously there was a lot of memes going around, you probably saw them around Conor Benn with this. But in a more serious note, the studies do suggest that when this is given to men, and it's usually in a pill form, it triggers testosterone. And this testosterone can help in kind of healing properties, but it can also help you put on muscle and offer a physical boost. Hence why it's a banned substance in sport worldwide. So saying all that, it makes sense, with Ben kind of moving up in weight, why potentially someone in his team or him have taken this drug. But we'll get onto that later. Here's a clip of Chris Algieri, who's obviously a well-qualified nutritionist and also a former opponent of Ben, kind of clarifying what this is.
How prevalent would you say are PEDs in boxing?
Very high percentage. Because there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of ways to clean the slate. There's a lot of ways to beat the test. It's an arms race between the drugs, the PEDs, and the tests. And there's a lot more money in the drugs and the PEDs than there is in the tests.
It's a good way to put it.
Clomiphene, which is also known as Clomid, I believe is the brand name. It's a female infertility drug that you give in order to improve ovulation. But for males, it can actually be a testosterone booster. But a lot of the time, guys will use it as a post-cycle drug. So you use an anabolic steroid, and then when you remove it from your body's production of testosterone plummets. So a lot of guys will use it when they're coming off their testosterone cycle in order to level out their testosterone level. But someone on their team scheduled the timing wrong and they got caught.
So Wasserman and Matchroom then released a statement after this, basically confirming that this was the case from VADA, but they were still waiting on a B sample from VADA. And I'm led to believe that this wouldn't be ready till after the fight on Saturday. However, Ben did pass the UK anti-doping agency test, which works in conjunction with the British Boxing Board of Control, and this is the agency that can basically reinforce bans in the UK, whereas VADA, on the other hand, is voluntary. It doesn't have any jurisdiction or authority to give out bans. It can only provide the information to the governing bodies who are in control of the fight. And in this case, that was the British Boxing Board of Control. So, of course, with all this going around, there was question marks right from the off, that, should this fight be happening? Conor Benn is tested for a PED, however, they needed that B sample. And of course, both fighters, being fighters, want this fight to go ahead. Obviously they're going to get paid, but more on the side of Chris Eubank, he's trying to cut all this weight, he's trained very hard, and yeah, it would have, I can understand why he wanted to go ahead with the fight. He even there was reports of him getting medical expert advice, find out how much of an advantage it would give Ben, and they did confirm that it was a performance enhancing drug, but it wouldn't give him any real advantage, and you can take that as you want. So then, obviously there was the open workouts were happening that day, in the afternoon, I believe. And it was here is when the British Boxing Board of Control came out with their statement where they basically prohibited the bout taking place in the best interest of boxing. And you can pause and read that statement if you want. And yeah, I think, after this was announced, obviously, Eddie Hearn and Ben and Chris Eubank were finding out about this. And fair play to Conor Benn, he came and actually spoke to the media, and obviously he was probably advised not to say certain things from his lawyers, but despite what he was saying, it didn't really give me full confidence what he was saying was true. But here's what he had to say.
and I wanted you guys to hear it from me personally rather than reading it in a statement from me and my team. I've not committed any violations. I've not been suspended. So as far as I'm concerned, the fight is still going ahead. I've spoken to Chris personally, and we both want the fight to go ahead. We've both taken medical and legal advice, and as I said, we want the fight to happen for the fans. You know, I've signed up to every voluntary anti-doping testing there is under the sun. Throughout my whole career, I'm tested. You know, all my UK tests have come back negative throughout my whole career. I've never had any issues before. Even in the lead up to this fight, my tests have come up negative. You know, so my team will find out as to why there's been an initial adverse finding in my test. But as I said, as far as I'm concerned, the fight is still going ahead. I'm a clean athlete, and we'll get to the bottom of this. I just want to thank everyone for their continued support. And
so this is where all these questions were starting to get thrown around. He obviously says, I've not committed any violations. It's not like he's not saying, I didn't take any drugs. So there's question marks even around what he said in that statement. And nevertheless, as we kind of had the day to reflect, you know, and as the conversations were going on around the governing body to get them back involved, there's rumours around getting another governing body outside the UK to take control. You know, this had actually happened before with David Hay and Chisora back in 2012 when they didn't have their UK boxing licenses. They brought in the Luxembourg boxing governing body, I believe. However, they had a couple of months to prepare for the fight, whereas we're only a couple of days from the fight. But maybe this was a push from the promoters to try and get the board to change their minds. However, despite this, you know, obviously there was clearly discussions all of yesterday and this morning, and kind of, I think everyone got a bit of time to reflect on what had happened, and it became quite clear to everyone, you know, from what I saw on social media, journalists, boxers, everyone, that this fight shouldn't be happening. However, with so much, you know, money involved with the promoters, the broadcasters, and the fighters as well, there was always going to be a push from their end to try to get over the line. You know, and obviously people were digging past interviews with Eddie Hearn of him talking about fighters failing tests and basically what's happened today. And here's what he said in 2018, I believe.
I don't need to save money. I want to put on good fights. So that was a good fight for DAZN. So I'm disappointed. But what is the point in signing up for drug testing if when you fail, everyone just goes, oh, don't worry about it, just let him fight, you know? Yeah. So, and the argument of, well, it's all right with UCAD is totally irrelevant. You've signed drug testing with VADA, the best testing agency, in my opinion, in the sport.
And basically today the fight press conferences were meant to happen, I believe, around 1 o'clock. However, they kept getting pushed back, and reports were Eddie Hearn and Callie Sutherland were trying to get the British Boxing Board of Control back on side, and that they were getting the lawyers involved, which clearly they didn't manage to convince them, and they released their statement at 4 PM, which you can pause on the screen right now to have a read. But basically, they were blaming the British Boxing Board of Control for pulling out the fight. They're going to pursue stuff legally against them. And then not long after that, there was also a press conference by Eddie Hearn and Callie Sutherland, and basically just saying the same statement. However, also making it adamant that Ben is not suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control. While he also said it was false claims from the media regarding them being the High Court trying to bring back the British Boxing Board of Control or another governing body. Now, overall, this is extremely disappointing that it has come to this. From all the evidence right now, it's kind of clear that Ben has taken something, or has accidentally taken something, or maybe someone from his team has done him in and put it into his protein shake or something, I don't know. But despite that, it's an illegal substance. It's a well-known ped, and I think as boxing fans and people who love this sport, you know, we need to know what happens when that B sample comes back. And I do hope we get to the bottom of this, and whether there's an investigation into Ben is yet to be seen. I believe because it was VADA that discovered the findings, that nothing can be done unless they work together with UCAD, I'm led to believe. That's the only way some sort of investigation or ban can happen. Now, comment below and let me know if that's the case. I don't know for sure, but you'd hope that UCAD and VADA, UCAD would take the information from VADA to try and sort this out, because this is what we don't want cheats in this sport. We don't want anyone taking performance enhancing drugs. It's dangerous as it is, this sport. You can get badly hurt. Something like this, and really taking a stance once and for all, can stop people from trying to do this. I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, lots of people are taking it in the sport, and yeah, I agree. There probably is people taking it. I'm not saying that there isn't, but you need to cut it out, and this is going to be a high profile case regardless what happens. But overall, I do think the British Boxing Board of Control have done the right thing for once. They have to be applauded for its stance. It's quite often they screw up a lot of stuff, let's be honest, and they would have got a lot of heat if this fight went ahead. Something that was to happen to Eubank Jr, boxing would truly be in question in the sport in the UK anyway, I believe, and the whole integrity of the sport, and let's be honest, the integrity of the sport isn't that great at the best of times, but this time, finally, it's made the right decision. It might not be a popular decision for some, but at the end of the day, you need to save the fighters from themselves sometimes, and it's just really disappointing overall that this has happened. I also think the fight would have been completely overshadowed by this whole incident, and if Ben was even to win this fight, he would still look incredibly bad. And let's be honest, going forward, he's going to have a shadow for the rest of his career, his life even, as a cheater because of this. Unless there was a mistake in the testing process from VADA. And yeah, obviously, we will find out what will happen over the next weeks or months, and we'll be able to tell what will happen. And I think it's clear to me there was a lot on this event from the promoters and the broadcasters, hence why they were really pushing it. They clearly did spend a lot of money to promote this fight. You just have to look at the DAZN and Matchroom, YouTube pages, so many like documentaries and advertising in and around London and stuff like that. But unfortunately for them this time, it just couldn't be ignored, especially with the findings of that drug. So yeah guys, hopefully this video kind of helped you of what's gone over the past 2 days. Personally, yeah, it's just a real shame for those on the undercard, who have no doubt wasted a lot of time and money on camps. And yeah, I don't know where this leaves Conor Benn going forward. I think he's probably lost most respect from the whole boxing world. I don't want to kick a man when he's down. We still need to find out all the facts of what actually happened. But whatever the outcome, it's going to be difficult for him coming back, and it's going to be a long road for him. And I think the promoters as well really need to have a hard look at themselves. They clearly didn't have the fighter's best interest at heart here. They should have had other fighters lined up for the main event in case something like this happened. But it is what it is. Eubank Jr versus Conor Benn is off. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole situation. Could something have been done differently? But yeah guys, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. It'd be fascinating to hear. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.